All right, we are in section 1.1 again with more key terms. In this video, we're going to look at variables in a bit more detail. So let's remind ourselves of what a variable was. All right, it is generally notated by capital letters, and it's a characteristic of interest for each subject in a population. So it's something that we're interested in studying for a population of people, things, objects, etc. Now, variables that allow for classification based on attributes or characteristics are called categorical variables. Okay, now this basically just means, you can see kind of the word category in there. We are separating things based on categories. All right. So notice these can also be called qualitative variables. So qualitative, you can kind of see the word quality in there. So it's some quality of the thing that we're looking at. And we'll look at some more examples, but this might be something like hair color, for instance. You can classify a population of people based on the attributes or characteristic of their hair, and their different categories for this categorical variable would be things like black hair, blonde hair, brown hair, red hair, rainbow colored hair, etc. So those are all different categories or things for this categorical variable. Okay, then variables which have number-based measurements with equal units are called numerical variables. Okay, stick an S on there. Okay, numerical variables here. And there you can see numerical, it's number based, so that can help you remember this one. Numerical variables are number based. These can also be called quantitative, because instead of looking at a quality, we are looking at a quantity number with these type of variables. Okay, and note with these, you can do arithmetic operations with the values of a variable like this and get meaningful results, unlike categorical variables. So numerical variables, you could do things like take an average, add values together, subtract, etc., and it would actually mean something. With a categorical variable like hair color that I was talking about, you can't really do arithmetic with that. You can't take the average of black hair and blonde hair and get something that means anything. So there is a big difference between how we can handle these different types of variables. Okay, now data, which is a word that we've all heard, data are the actual values of the variable. So it's things that this variable can take on. So for instance, going back to that hair color example, the different data values would be, you get black hair, blonde hair, another person with black hair, another person with black hair, a redhead. That would be your data set. So those are the actual values of the variable. They might be numbers or they might be words, depending on what type of variable you have. And then a datum is a single value. Data, this one, is actually a plural word, the values. A datum is a single value. Often you'll also hear this referred to as a single data point, but the official term is datum. Okay. So in our next example here, we are going to classify each of the following variables, and then we'll give an example of what a datum, a value for that variable, would look like. Or we could do a couple data points if we want. All right, so our first variable, capital X, is the number of basketballs sold in 1 month on Amazon. Okay, we got to decide if that is categorical or numerical. So is this based on an attribute or characteristic of something, or is this a number-based measurement? It's the latter, isn't it? It's a number-based measurement. So this is going to be a numerical variable. Okay. And sample datum, I'm not sure exactly how many basketballs get sold in 1 month on Amazon. I tried to look that up for Amazon specifically and couldn't find out. But I did find out that about 250,000 basketballs are sold in the United States each year. So I think that was combining everything, not just Amazon. Maybe Amazon, since they're worldwide, sells about, let's say 20,000 basketballs in a month. This is just a sample datum. It doesn't have to be exact. But that's just an example of a value that this variable can take on. All right. So X could equal 20,000. All right. Let's look at the next one here. Capital F, colors of foam board that are available at a craft store. So foam board is that stuff you probably have used it for a presentation at some point in your life, perhaps. But let's think about that. What colors of board would we see at a craft store? There might be white foam board, that's pretty common. Blue foam board, orange foam board. Those are some example data there. Things like white, blue, orange, whatever. So by kind of thinking about what the data look like, we can determine what type of variable we have here, because is that number based? No, it's not. It's based on a characteristic of the foam board. It's the color. The characteristic is color. So this is a categorical variable. Oops. Categorical. All right, next one. M is the time it takes to mow a lawn on P Street. I was thinking here in Livermore. So let's kind of start by thinking about the sample data points. How long does it take to mow a lawn? Well, depends on the size of a lawn, definitely. So maybe it would take someone 45 minutes, for example. That seems pretty reasonable. If it's a really big lawn, I mean, maybe it would take an hour, hour and a half. If it's just a little tiny patch of lawn, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So by talking about those data, we can see that they are number-based measurements for this. All right, certain number of minutes. So this is going to be a numerical variable. Okay, now let's think about B, the age of a student in a biology class. You can probably guess at this point, this is going to be numerical because the data we'll get are going to be numbers. Maybe the student is 18 years old, maybe they're 29. We've got a wide range of ages here at Las Positas, so maybe they are 56, maybe they're 16, But there are a lot of different options, but they're all numbers, some number of years. Okay, and then the last one, the employment status of a Livermore resident. Okay, well, let's think about what the data might look like. If we're asking people, about their employment status, you might say, okay, are you employed full time? Are you employed part time? Different options there. Um, we might be unemployed. Okay. Those are the main three I can think of at the moment. But notice how we are not getting numbers for our data there. They're different descriptions of employment status. So we are classifying people based on the characteristic of their employment. So this is going to be a categorical variable. Okay, so there is the first look at classifying variables. And in the next section, we're going to look more at this, categorizing data and breaking it down into different types. So keep these ideas in mind as we're moving on to section 1.2.